Well, welcome to this week's Going Deeper. And in this session, I want to challenge our thinking a little bit on the topic of becoming a lover of others. A key scripture in this thought is in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 23, where Jesus says, "The greatest among you must be a servant, for those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. For I did not come to be served, but to serve." So Jesus is drawing a straight line between service and humility. And there's no doubt that being in the place of serving others is where Jesus wants us to be. Clearly, God's desire is for us to become a servant like Jesus. But have you ever thought about the bigger picture in this scenario? That's what I want to talk about today. And to do that, I want to tell two stories. First one, this story is about an old man in India by a river. And it says, the old man sat down in the shade of an ancient banyan tree whose roots disappeared far away in a swamp. Presently he discerned a commotion where the roots entered the water, and concentrating his attention, he saw that a scorpion had become helplessly entangled in the roots. Pulling himself to his feet, he made his way carefully along the tops of the roots to the place where the scorpion was trapped, and he reached down to pull it out. But each time he touched the scorpion, it lashed his hand with its tail, stinging him painfully. Finally, his hand was so swollen he could no longer close his fingers, so he withdrew back to the shade of the tree to wait for the swelling to go down. As he arrived back at the tree trunk, he saw a young man standing above him on the road, laughing at him. "You're a fool," said the young man, "wasting your time trying to help a scorpion that can only do you harm." The old man replied, "Simply because it is in the nature of the scorpion to sting, should I change my nature, which is to save?" Now, this story begs an important question. Should we permit the behaviour of others towards us, even as we move to serve them, to change our ideals and behaviour? Certainly, if another person expresses that our help is unwanted, then we must respect them and withdraw. But do we allow that rejection to then alter our desire to serve and help and love people at all? Because that can happen. Do we then move to not serve and help for fear of being rejected next time? The truth is, moment of transparency here, I can become defensive and lose patience when my honest attempts to serve and lead in Jesus' name are rejected or misunderstood. And if I do, I'm allowing the actions and attitudes of others to have power over me. And I'm preventing Jesus from teaching me something deeper about the acts of service. And that is this, that there is a power in serving to change my heart and my life. And so to our second story. Sundar Singh was a missionary and a humble disciple of Christ who lived and ministered in the foothills of Tibet in northern India. He lived in the late 1800s through to the early 1900s. And today, much of his work is credited with starting and growing the church, the Christian church in that area, where there were previously no churches before he arrived. So here's the story, and he writes it. He says, "Once when traveling in Tibet, I was crossing a high mountain pass with my Tibetan guide. The weather had suddenly turned bitterly cold, and my companion and I feared that we might not make it to the next village, still several miles away, before succumbing to the frost. Suddenly, we stumbled upon a man who had slipped from the path and was lying in the snow. And looking more closely, I discovered that the man was still alive, though barely. 'Come,' I said to my companion, 'help me try to bring this unfortunate man to safety. But my companion was upset and frightened for his life, and he answered, "You know the rule of the mountain, Sundar. If we try to carry that man, none of us will ever reach the village. We will all freeze to death. Our only hope is to go on as quickly as possible, and that is what I intend to do. You will come with me if you value your life." And without another word and without looking back, he set off down the mountain track. And Sundar says, "I could not bring myself to abandon the helpless traveller while life remained in him. So I lifted him onto my back and I threw my meagre blanket around both of us as best I could. Slowly and painstakingly, I picked my way along the steep, slippery path with my heavy load. Soon it began to snow heavily, and I could make out the way forward only with great difficulty. How we made it, I still do not know. But just as daylight was beginning to fade, the snow cleared and I could see houses a few hundred yards ahead. Then, near me on the ground, I saw the frozen body of my guide. Within shouting distance of the village, he had succumbed to the cold and died, while the unfortunate traveller and I made it to safety. The exertion of carrying him and the contact of our bodies had created enough heat to save us both." And then he says, "This is the way of service. No one can live without the help of others, and in helping others, we receive help ourselves." I love this story. It's a true story for the way it reveals a meaning to serving that we can often miss. You see, we do not serve to be rewarded, but God sees serving and our attitude in the service as crucial to our development. If we respond according to the highest ideals of Jesus, when we act patiently and lovingly, even as our service is rejected, that service has an impact on the growth that God wants for our life. We allow God to mould and shape us into the likeness of His Son when we serve. In serving, we ourselves receive the thanks of heaven, and we identify with Jesus, who is the suffering servant. And that's what becoming a lover of others is all about.